in the state with a deep dive
इसको
into the
बुलाओ
Mumbai
काटे
Eastern Waterfront, port redevelopment, and future possibilities along the Eastern Waterfront. So, which are the mega project opportunities within the state of Maharashtra? How will Mumbai's port redevelopment and future redevelopment possibilities double the city's GDP? Is 3 lakh new jobs going to be a reality, and how? What makes the Eastern Waterfront project a project of national importance, and how will it enhance international trade and investment in India? This and much more will be discussed in this panel discussion. Before I invite all the panelists, because they're just joining in into the stream, so as they join us in, you can view a quick video on Construction World who and ASAP Info Global Group who are bringing this event to you today. Can we have the video, please?
not merely talk the talk. And it is inspiring to be amidst people like you sitting here.
For this effort. I'm delighted to be here this evening, and I'm here particularly for this function.
Congratulate the organizers for drawing our attention and focusing attention on this very important area.
Pradeep Udhas, who is responsible for conceptualizing this idea.
Thank Aspire for this event this evening, underscoring India's commitment.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen. So, mega project opportunities in Maharashtra is what the next session is going to focus on. with, like I mentioned, a deep dive into the Mumbai Eastern Waterfront. May I invite and welcome the moderator of the session, Mr. Pradeep Udhas, Office Managing Partner, West KPMG India. Welcome and thank you for
Hi.
joining us. Hi. I'd also like to call all the panelists who would be joining Mr. Udas today. So please welcome with me Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, Managing Director, Hiranandani Group, Mr. Jayant K. Banthia, former Chief Secretary, Government of Maharashtra, Vice Admiral I.C. Rao, retired PVSM AVSM,
Hello.
Mr. Sarfaraz Momin, Founding Partner, Studio Pod,
Hello.
Mr. Chintan Patel, Partner, Real Estate Advisory, KPMG India,
Hi.
and Mr. Ashish Puntambekar, Principal Planner, Construction World, Maharashtra.
Hi.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this panel discussion. We would have three presentations of 10 minutes each. The first will be a presentation on projects in Maharashtra, followed by two deep dive presentations on the Mumbai Eastern Waterfront, followed by the panel discussion, which would be for 45 minutes. Over to you, Mr. Pradeep Udhas, to take this session forward. And once again, to all my viewers, do continue commenting, sharing your questions with us. We would be happy to take it up with this panel at the end of the session. Over to you, Mr. Udhas.
Good, good. So it's wonderful, in a time like this, when the whole country is in a survival mode and going through such tough times. It is good to see that we do see that eventually we will come out of it, and there is a lot to look forward to for the world and for India and for Mumbai. I'm so glad to have this wonderful panel. Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, whom I have known for many years. He's the, you cannot have a discussion on any major development and not have Dr. Hiranandani there, because he's always been very, very thoughtful, has a great vision. He's proved it himself, and he's very open to discussion. He's he epitomizes what world-class developer should be. So thank you for being here, and of course Mr. Rao, Vice Admiral Rao, my colleague Chintan Patel, who heads Real Estate Advisory. I thought it'd be good to have him, Mr. Banthia, and of course, indefatigable Ashish, who it takes men with a lot of courage and perseverance to stick with something, and keep pursuing a dream. Whether people may ridicule and say, "What are you talking about?" Even I myself, at times, said, "Ashish, are you sure?" It is such a big thinking. The vision is great, but how do we get people behind it? And at times, even I have felt, but I really admire Ashish for really staying with it. Of course, we still have to achieve it, but the fact that even in times like this, that he's able to pull this together, I'm very happy about that. And of course, Sarfaraz Momin, who's been part of that visualization. You will see some amazing thoughts that they have. What I would like to highlight for the listeners is that this is a very holistic development idea, the kind you would see in sometimes in some Europe or in Singapore or in some parts of the US, where they think big, think scale. And Ashish always told me when he met me, he says, we always think like, oh, this is my small area, etc. Why can't we think holistically? And the vision for this Eastern Mumbai waterfront is that which will create, doubling Mumbai's GDP. And there are examples for that, Singapore, Hong Kong, where waterfronts like this have actually, even in Canary Wharf in London, where waterfronts like this have created amazing economic value for the region. So if this was done, it will double GDP of Mumbai. Some over 9 lakh jobs would be created, and which we all have come to value is the environment because of this COVID, right? The whole world is understood, and this will increase as cover of Mumbai, green cover, by 600%. So there are a lot of ideas. I mean, affordable housing for 1.2 million people. So I really wish we can have a good debate here, get discussion going with the esteemed panel. The idea is to really, there are some 13 areas, there are discrete areas right now where different things are being done or not done. They're lying vacant. Some land, factory lands which is not used, or some Navy, Mr. Rao, there are some Navy land which is not, it's just lying idle. The asset is not sweating, and so 13 areas would be kind of, the way Ashish and Sarfraz will present is kind of narrowed it down to, 3 major objectives of having 60 acres of super tall buildings, business district, Disneyland, flamingo reserves. Totally, it's about $16 billion of investment. So big thinking that has to happen is also, where will the money come from? How would we raise the money? But I think if we have the right vision and right people behind it, the money could come. I think so that is something that, again, Chintan, maybe you can put your thinking hat on, and when we ask you questions on this, this will be achieved through some 14 different projects. So that also is a massive task as to how these 40 projects, like orchestra, in tandem, they have to work together to different projects to achieve the eventual vision. So I will now pass it on for the next presentation. Ashish, is it would the presentation you want to follow, or do you want to have a few words from Hiranandani, Mr. Rao, etc.?
As discussed yesterday, I think, let's, because if we have a discussion in the beginning, then there will not be, it will get split into 2 parts, the discussion. So very quickly, we'll go into the presentation.
So get the vision going, right? So Ashish, then why don't we get started? I've just given a highlight. Yeah.
So Sarfaraz, can you just go ahead and make your presentation?
Hello, everyone. I hope you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
All right, great. So thank you, everyone, for having me on board. My name is Sarfaraz Momin. I'm the founder of Studio Pod, but here I am in capacity representing Apli Mumbai. Apli Mumbai is a Portland's initiative, which was started by late Meera Sanyal and IC Rao, who's present amongst us over here, along with several small sort of design groups and think tanks. We all got together back in 2012 as a response to the Rani Jadhav committee to come up with an idea of what Mumbai could be if the people of Mumbai set out a vision. So essentially what Apli Mumbai did was we held several conferences, charrettes, we held pop-up picnics at the Portlands. Here we are talking about a land which is 1,800 acres in Mumbai, and it is hardly visible. People are hardly aware of it. So our idea was to create awareness, make people aware that there is so much land that we have. We held exhibitions at stations, we held several conferences, and one of my favorite images are these street exhibitions where the actual stakeholders of Sassoon Dock were actually looking at what's going to happen to their city very soon. what we did was, after we did all of this presentation with charrettes, brainstorming, we came up with these 5 ideas that we think people really, really wanted from Mumbai as a city to become livable, to become better. A, we need to understand what we need in terms of what people require as social infrastructure. B, we must make sure that we connect back to nature in a very big way. And C, again, we needed robust transport networks and, of course, smart infrastructure. The fifth is something that is neglected a lot of times in a generic city, but a city like Mumbai, we must talk about how can we connect people back to the water, because we are an island city and we have water surrounding all around. We must make sure that we do that. One example that I'd like to sort of show to everyone is this. This is a big U plan for the city of Manhattan. The interesting bit is that it is the geography of Mumbai in a lot of ways. But the new ideas are not about pouring concrete. They're not about hard infrastructure. Infrastructure is taking an interesting turn around the world, and people are thinking about parks and gardens and landscapes and sustainable development in a very, very different way at a systemic level all across the city. Here, the gardens and parks are designed in such a way that in case there is sea level rise, we will be able to mitigate that, and our cities will still survive. You can see the image on the right hand side that, in a storm surge situation, which we are subject to every year, we will have this protective shield around the city, which will make sure that we are protected and we thrive, and our economy thrives and our people thrive. And as part of that initiative, they've actually built this entire infrastructure around the city of Manhattan. And it is something that is, a series of connected parks. And it is something that, infrastructure needs to understand, that it is not just concrete, it's not just, buildings, but people need a lot of other mechanisms in which a city can become livable and thrive. Based on that idea, what we did was, as a group, we came together and we came up with this idea of what if we had this protective layer all around the city of Mumbai, the island city of Mumbai, which would create like the 60 kilometers of continuous walking, cycling, and an amazing park system that would protect us from the nature, its fury during monsoons, and would also become these green lungs. And in that portion, what is important is the Eastern Portlands play a very, very important role in this. Next slide, where I'm saying that what we need is a publicly accessible waterfront all around the city of Mumbai. We must be able to give access to everyone, and anyone who's living within the city should have easily be able to reach any side of the waterfront and have easy walk around and experience the water. That's where the main sort of soul of the city lies. And a lot of it is not about creating, a lot of reclamation or anything of that sort. It is about creating this little buffer, creating this little refuge of green that will allow everyone to be participant in this in this city. One other thing that we did come up with was analyzing this, that where are the social hubs people go towards. So you look at the Maidans, you look at the gardens, you look at the schools, you look at all the public spaces, and you see that they are concentrated on the west side, obviously around Churchgate and the town and all of that. But you see a big portion of the B ward, the C ward, the F South. You see that there is some bits that are actually lacking in these areas. You don't get in the center portion where the inner cities are. We don't have access to a lot of these things. Examples that Meera used to give is that one basketball court in Nagpada has practically produced the entire basketball team of Mumbai. That's the power of social sort of hubs and the infrastructure. So our idea is that the Eastern Portlands will actually be a place where we will make sure that the entire city actually has access to the social hubs, and we create these social hubs first before the concrete, the buildings, and all of the other things come in. The next is obviously something that we need to think about is about transportation. We can, on the Eastern waterfronts, embrace water transport in a very big way because we have the correct conditions on that side. It's much more protected, all of the other things. And then hovercrafts and other materials, other sort of modes can come towards the west side where it is challenging. And it comes about this plan, which is really, we are going to get a lot of metros in. We have the lifeline of Mumbai, which is the central and the western and the harbour line. What we are really close to achieving is this 15-minute city that everyone in the world is talking about. Mumbai breathes it, Mumbai lives it, and we are very, very close to creating this reality. And to boost that, what we are saying is there is an idea of how about we create amazing waterfronts on either side, and then we have these linear parks within the city that would link on either side of the coast. Anyone living in the middle or center or any part of Mumbai will be able to, within 15 minutes or 10 minutes, even reach either side of the coast. And these linear parks, we've demonstrated one of the areas where Maulana Shaukat Ali Road can actually be transformed very, very, transit-centric green street that will link either side of the coast and would become an amazing livable city. This is what Paris did back in the 1850s. This is what a lot of cities are doing. They're rethinking their streets, their transport in a very, very different way. And this leads us to, as a group came together and we created these 12 interesting neighborhoods where different sort of things are going to happen. The next presentation that follows that Mr. Admiral is going to showcase is a deep dive into what these 12 neighborhoods are actually going to achieve. What we did was we took a central neighborhood of Darukhana of Haji Bandar, and we created a vision plan that was about creating this green edge all along the city, and then having other sort of city that fits in, looking at how the stormwater flows, how actually can we capture all of this, and then creating the park system, and then introduce all the concrete, the infrastructure, the other traditional methods that are there in the place. And eventually what we want is this really cool sort of, catalyst that will actually kickstart this process of transforming Mumbai, where we develop eastern portlands, but it is actually a much bigger redevelopment of our city, where we make it greener, we make it more connected, we make it socially just, and we make it accessible to all. Thank you. That was my short presentation. I'm going to hand it over to Admiral Rao.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Can you all see the screen now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. This is our vision plan for the Eastern Waterfront. This part of the presentation deals only with the Mumbai Port Trust land, about 14 kilometers from Sivri to Sassoon Dock. Now, the background is that the land area of Mumbai port was acquired mainly by reclamation in the 19th and early 20th century. And the surplus land was leased out in 1920s on 60-year leases. Now, all those leases have expired, and the port trust and the government have decided not to renew the lease. So this is all protected land, and there are 400 acres to be redeveloped or regenerated, as you like to call it. But unfortunately, it's under litigation. So this is a caveat. We must get over the problems of the lessees. There are 1,500 cases, and now let's hope that we get over that. Now, the reason for this land becoming available is that the JNPT has developed into a major container and bulk cargo port. So the Mumbai port traffic has declined. Mumbai port without JNPT is now the 8th largest port in India, out of which basically petroleum into Butcher Island, which is now called Jawahar Dweep, that is the major source of income for the port. The cargo, dry cargo, is declining fast because the ships that are carrying cargo now are much bigger, and they can't be accommodated in the water depth that is available in Mumbai port. So now the land area which we are talking about is 709 hectares, which is about 1,700 acres. That's the overall land. But let us now concentrate on 200 hectares, which can be made available, which is now basically vacant, and it can be planned for gardens, roads, open spaces, and tourism-related facilities. Out of which 66 hectares in the plan, which we will be coming to, is for commercial exploitation that will generate the income for the rest of the development. 93 hectares is also proposed to be reclaimed to form a central park. This is actually very highly silted up water area opposite Sivri and Haji Bandar and Darukhana, where with a minimum amount of filling, you can create a park which will be a great boon for the city of Mumbai, especially for the central part. Now, we looked at the situation and found that if we were to divide the area of the 14 kilometers into small neighborhoods, each one could be taken up individually and developed instead of having a huge plan which would not be feasible. Therefore, we created from north to south about 12 what we call neighborhoods. Now let's go down from Sivri. The first would be that it's naturally a park because there is already the Sivri fort. There is a very ancient dargah there. There is the flamingos. There is mangroves, and we will come to the actual project planning a little later. So this would be the first item. It is natural. This would also become there are some areas which are west of the railway line, like Zakaria Bandar in Sivri, where you can have commercial activities because it's not along the waterfront. Now, here we said we can have BRICS headquarters, we can have trade and innovation hubs. It's already commercialized, but it requires rejuvenation. Haji Bandar, which is on the eastern side, it was being used for coal handling, which was unacceptable in a city like Mumbai. That should really become a sports city because it's flat, it's openly available, it's accessible from the central part of the populated areas of Mumbai. We got similarly Lakdi Bandar, which can become a training hub. It's on the waterfront. And what the beauty of this is that there are these finger jetties which can be developed innovatively. People are thinking of having one theme along for each one. Some can be a museum theme, it can be a cultural hub. We are thinking of water sports, and there's also a plot reserved for a maritime museum in that area. And you can even bring an old dhow, and that can be a great tourist attraction. This was the docks before 2008. At that time, the Port Trust, against the grain of the flow, wanted to have an offshore container terminal. They started the project, and to stack the containers, regrettably, these both Princess Dock and Victoria Dock were filled. They were supposed to be filled with sand that actually became silt or rubble. And that project was flawed from the start, and therefore it has collapsed. It is not going to be a container terminal anymore because the depth of water available here was 5 meters. It can't be increased to 10 maybe, but certainly not up to 16 meters, which was the target. JNPT is much suited for the bigger ships. Even they can take only up to 14 meters. Now, here we had if you can see, there is a domestic cruise terminal already come up. We can have a museum here. There's a big car park, and all this area has been open to the public and it's come out of the customs bound area. There's going to be a marina in Princess Dock. Unfortunately, the Meriwether dry dock, which was here, is lost for good. And we feel that this can be revived into a very nice marina and a tourist hub. There are going to be restaurants. This is already planned, amphitheater, etc. in this. Now, a new marina could change the face of Mumbai, and it can become really attractive like Barcelona or any other world-class city. Now we come to the master plan. Now all this was discussed between 2014, 15, 16. The new chairman of the Port Trust in 2016 decided that he must have a master plan, and a contract was awarded to HCP Designs Private Limited. Now they are, of course, now famous for becoming the consultants for the Central Vista, but we had the benefit of their design work in 2017. This was presented, and in 2018, at the suggestion, in fact, of Apli Mumbai, the Mumbai Port Trust took up the project to become a special planning authority for the port area under the MRTP Act, and so they are now have a drive on the in the driving seat to develop the Mumbai port. So in 2018, the draft has been submitted. It has been approved by the central government. It is now awaiting the approval of the state government. Now, this was the plan made by HCP Designs Private Limited of Mr. Hasmukh Patel and Mr. Bimal Patel. This is the main area from Sivri here to Mazagon, and this is the big central park which was planned. These are the finger jetties. This will be the commercial area which will be developed. They were thinking of central government offices, which can be the money earner for this project, and right up down to Sassoon Dock here. Now, this plan is under approval. Now, in the meantime, the Port Trust had already taken up several projects. First was the International Cruise Terminal, the Marina. These are all various projects, and this is what the International Cruise Terminal is supposed to look like when it is complete. This is actually Ballet Pier, which has been reinvented, and this will become a well-known cruise destination. It's home ported by Costa and many other well-known cruise lines. And let's hope that after the pandemic, the cruise business will put Mumbai port on the map again. The domestic cruise terminal is already ready. The ferries to Goa started. Unfortunately, a few months later, it stopped, but it was departing from this terminal every 48 hours, every alternate day. And this little tower here, we had suggested to make it into a mini museum to attract the people who are, again, all the tourists who would be coming to the domestic cruise terminal. Now, this is the one idea of the courtesy HOK of Canada to have a marina in this area, which will be an attraction because as leisure activities gain ground, there will be ocean races, which are now attractive as a pastime, and improve the sea legs of Mumbai. Now, inside the docks, there is an old building which is called the Ghadial Ghar or Ghadial Godi, as it's called because of the clock tower here. The building has been vacant for nearly 30 years because it's an open building, but we find will be ideally suited to become a maritime museum. And this is our hope that the Port Trust will release this building at a nominal rate to make it into a very, very attractive and interesting museum port. That the tower on the top is historic. It was a time ball, which was a time signal which was given at the Greenwich Mean Time for all the ships in harbor to synchronize their chronometers and deck watches. And this we can revive. And other than Greenwich Observatory, this would be the second time ball, which would be a heritage of Mumbai. Now, coming to Sassoon Dock, in the last 2 years, a lot of planning has gone into making Sassoon Dock a modern fishing harbor and hub. It would be very, very attractive. You can see that this is the main Colaba Causeway. There would be a tourist hub here. These are the old Sassoon Dock sheds. This is where the about 80 trawlers would come. This is the new jetty, and there is a park nearby, and we will have its own ice plant, its own auction hall, and it can become a very, and many cities like Tokyo and even New York, the fishing harbor and fishing sales are great tourist attractions because it is fascinating to see the wide variety of ships of fish that can be seen for by any even a vegetarian. This is the vision of the Sivri Eco Park. The contract was given to Envirotech, which is of Dr. Umesh Kulkarni, and the design is ready. There were a large number of clearances required, including from the sea sediment. Now only the mangrove cell of the forest department has to clear it, because we want people to be able to walk on these planks into the mangrove area, see the environment there, and it will become an experience for people to visit the mangroves, which they can only see from a distance now. Now, all these things are giving us an opportunity to make Mumbai city, which has developed only around housing earlier, into something different. Even the mill lands, which was a great opportunity, turned out into a virtually a housing project, and a few IT projects which do not meet the environmental standards, infrastructure upgradation. But all these, I feel, should be attempted in the uh, 200 hectares which are there. And this will be the soul of Mumbai. Whereas the further developed in the next presentation, you will see that from north of Sivri, that is Mahul, Chembur, and those areas, there is a lot of redevelopment which can be done by moving the refineries which are outdated, the fertilizer plant which is
Sorry to
now too
interrupt.
close to our
We,
city.
we are
And
running a
I
bit
now
late,
hand
so we'll
over
have to speed
to
up.
the next speaker, Mr. Ashish, our great visionary, Mr. Ashish Puntambekar. And this is doable, and let's do it.
See, I will just very briefly, I will tell you this. When I have looked at the waterfront, I have looked at the entire waterfront. And I had first suggested this idea to Mr. Nitin Gadkari. And I said that it shouldn't be done in parts. It should be done as one full large project. So that is one part of it. Next, you can go. Sir. So this is a mass upliftment project. See, there's a lot of very sophisticated buildings and stuff that will be built, but one of the main key ideas behind it is how do we improve the living standards of a very large number of people as we go in for large scale development to the best of world standards. Next. So there are six objectives. One is doubling Mumbai's GDP, creating 900,000 jobs, increasing Mumbai's green cover by 600%, permanently sequestering toxic waste in Mumbai's creeks in a waste island. This is a large part of the project. It is, see, Mumbai's water, offshore Mumbai, it is extremely toxic. So I will come to that presently, but this is something important. Then they're improving the water quality and restoring fish populations, creating affordable housing for 1.2 million people, and improving the connectivity from south to north Mumbai. So these are some of the objectives of the project. Okay, so this is how it looks now. It's 18 kilometers from number 13, which is just near the naval base, to the refineries. Okay, go next. 7 times the size of Marine Drive. This is how the area looks today. So there's, it's pretty dilapidated.
Next slide, please. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are 14 projects in this, and I will come to those 14 projects presently. So we can go to that. But one thing I want you to notice is this red, Sarfaraz, 1 minute, just the previous side. Okay, there's this red thing on this, this is the reclamation on which a lot of these things are based. I have designed this project in a manner that does not interfere with the current Mumbai's the port plan. That is a very important consideration, because if you start interfering with what they have already approved, you can run into a lot of time delay. So I don't want to do that. So I want to do this reclamation, but there are certain reasons why it should be done, and therefore we have done this thing is included in the plan. Okay, so the next slide. Yeah. So if you look at the development that's happened, I have looked at Hong Kong Harbour and Canary Wharf. Hong Kong Harbour, they did a huge amount of reclamation over the last 100 years. The GDP has been increased by $274 billion. And in the case of Canary Wharf, a 97-acre site has created 150,000 jobs and $14.5 billion GDP. So we're going to attempt something like that here in Mumbai. Next. So what are the major projects within this area? Okay. So we got 6 projects. I just want you to look at some major numbers. The total size of it is $39 billion. There's 6 projects: super tall buildings, new business district, Disneyland, Portland University, and affordable housing. Next. Okay, so this is the super tall buildings complex. There's going to be one building of 660 meters height and 3 buildings around it arranged in a tripod of 400 meters each. The size of the project is around $4.18 billion. I'm not dwelling on the individual things. I just want the public to see it. And the later part, I want to just focus on financing and economic and ecological things that this project will solve. Next. Then we've got a 60-acre business district, which will have luxury office spaces, luxury hotels, office spaces, and convention centers. Next. Then there is the Portland University. This idea came to me when I was listening to a conversation between Arnab Goswami and the current Prime Minister of Britain, where he said that they have large number of universities in London because they produce such a lot of intellectual property. So this university is going to have 90 different disciplines. It's going to have 20,000 faculty and 20,000 students and 10,000 faculty. And the net addition to Mumbai's GDP is around $3 billion a year. Okay, next. Then the new legislature building, it's a 50-acre legislature building, 15 acres of legislature complex. There's going to be an amphitheater for public meetings and government offices. Next. Then the entertainment precincts. This is the largest part of the project. And this will come in that reclaimed area. So it's going to be a $14 billion Disneyland on 90 acres property. There's going to be an ocean world, a 20-acre bird park, and 2 unique, theme parks, which we'll describe later. Thank you. Next. Yes, there's no place in Mumbai for affordable housing, and the plants around in the Mahol and Chembur area are pretty old. So the plan here is to move these plants out of Mumbai. I will explain it at the end of the presentation why it should be done. But this will be housing around 1.2 million people, 300,000 families at a cost of 54,000 crores. Then the environmental interventions. So there's going to be East Central Park. This is going to be a 18 kilometers long park with 400 kilometers width, which will come in the area that you are seeing in this green strip over here. Next. Yes, there's a huge amount of toxic sediment offshore in the creeks. So there is a need to, solve the water quality problem and to revive the creeks and the life within it. So this project, the size of it and the reclamation will pay for the improvement of this water quality and to dredge the sediment and store it in a waste island. This is going to be a 6 kilometer into 3 kilometer waste island. So situated very close to the mouth but away from the channel. And it is going to, even empty out Mumbai's the large waste dumps. So the waste dump in Deonar, everything is going to be dumped over here. So it is going to be, it's not a very special construction. I don't want to go into it, but it will cost around 30,000 crores to build. It's based on the same concept as Semitao landfill in Singapore. Next. Then water quality. Most of Mumbai's waste is dumped without treating it. So there's 2,100 million liters which is dumped every day. So this, they're going to be 10 plants of 200 MLD each, which will be set up at a cost of around, it's not going to come in the waterfront area. The waterfront reclamation will pay for this. So that is why we need the reclamation. Okay, next. This is what the waterfront will look like in 2028-30. Next. Now, where does the money come from? See, the concept of the urban equity withdrawal comes out through this slide. Larsen and Toubro had made a presentation to the Government of Maharashtra in October 2015 regarding a 93-acre plot in Bandra East. L&T's idea was that they would spend 30,000 crores on this property. They will sell it for 1,25,000 crores and give the Government of Maharashtra 70,000 crores in cash. The design is similar to a fast breeder nuclear reactor, which produces more cash than it consumes. So this is the idea that is going to be used in the waterfront area and along the entire eastern waterfront, and it will generate a huge amount of money. Next. So yeah, go ahead. So this is the thing, the concept. This see, I have in my plan, I've reserved around 834 acres for dense forest. The rest of the 2,796 acres will be given on the 90-year lease to developers. So it remains the property of the port trust, and it remains the property of, there's a special organization that we set up to to administer this. Now the corpus of funds that will be created will be 4,19,000 crores. So next. Yeah, this is how the money will be invested. This is the use of funds. There will be 6 SPVs which will be investing this money in super tall buildings. The government will be a part of it, so it's a PPE. So these things, it's been very well thought out how this money will be invested, and a grant of around 1,80,000 crores will be made to SPV number 6. Now there's a reason for this. The idea was to take out some of the money from this very high value property and invest it in schools, hospitals, and to increase the living standards of people across Maharashtra. That is one of the major aspects of this project. Next. Yeah, so what will SPV 6 do? SPV 6 is going to build 60,000 check dams across Maharashtra to increase water tables. Water tables have fallen from 125 feet to 900 feet and even 1,200 feet. So these water tables, investing in these check dams all across Marathwada and Vidarbha what it will do is it will create 600,000 jobs in these places. It's going to create 60,000 fisheries and improve the agricultural productivity all across the state. Then there is going to be 2,000 secondary schools, 300 hospitals, 6 universities in rural Maharashtra, and 12 new eco-times and tribal areas which will be financed by SPV6. There's also, see, we don't have enough money to develop these, to build the kind of, clean energy that we require. So this project is also going to finance a 2,000 megawatt offshore wind farm based on ocean spar technology, and the plants will be built in Tuticorin or along the Saurashtra coast. The size of the project will reduce the cost of the wind turbine to lower than 18 crores per megawatt. Next. Now, what are the investment multipliers of the project? This project, at 39.08 billion, will have an investment multiplier impact of $117 billion. It will create 300,000 jobs within Mumbai and 600,000 jobs across Maharashtra. It will create demand for steel for 15 million tons, demand for cement of 15 million tons, and other manufactured products of $15 billion. It will also create 30,000 new jobs in partner countries and result in an investment by sovereign wealth funds of between 10 to 15 billion dollars in this project. Okay, what are the risks to this whole plan? See, when I looked at the waterfront as a whole, you can go to the next step. What bothered me was the large and old industrials in Mumbai, these BPCL, HPCL, and RCF. These plants, when they were built, the populations were very far away from them. Now populations have come within distances of 25 meters within these plants, and up to 100 meters also there are people living, 100 and beyond. So this is a very dangerous situation, and I can show you next time why these plants need to be moved. There have been accidents in these facilities. The refinery at BPCL caught fire on 18th August 2018. The RCF plant had an explosion in July 2018 in their boiler plant. So what can an explosion in these plants, which is serious, do? Go to the next slide. This is what happened in the Texas City disaster. This was on the 2005. This happened. 21.8 MTPA plant. You just see it raised, the fumes went up to the smoke, and went up to around 30,000 feet. The 38,000 feet. Everything around the plant was destroyed. So these are things that can happen here in South Mumbai, and it can in this area, Chembur Mahul area, and this needs to be prevented. That is why I look at the whole site as one single site. Now, support required from the government. What I'm saying is a large number of organizations need to get together to make this happen. This cannot happen by just the Mumbai port acting alone. It has got to involve BPCL, HPCL, RCF. It has got to involve the municipal corporation. It has got to involve the port trust. To get all these organizations talking, this project needs to be under the charge of the Prime Minister's office as a project of national importance. So this is what, go to the next slide. So this is what my ultimate thing is, that if you want to do something big, you've got to do it as a under a central authority that can get everybody talking to each other. Secondly, a project of this size needs
Yeah.
skill sets that are not currently in India.
Ashish, we
Yes,
need to
yes, sir.
really move.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So this is the last slide. Thank you.
We need to really move now because,
Yes. Okay.
yeah, yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks. I mean, there's a really well thought out, wonderful vision. I want to quickly jump to questions to the panel because the audience is waiting for that. I'll start off with Dr. Uh, Niranjan Hiranandani. This. I mean, if there's anybody who's thought about scale, the whole townships, everything, it's you. So as I have like three-pronged question. Actually, it's a long question, but I'll try to summarize. Is that first of all, you see this as something which should be done. It's a massive project from naval base to refineries. Should this be done or not? Basic question. Second is, if it should be done, what kind of capacity one needs? Not only skills, but of course needs 30, 40 million, $1 billion worth of capital. It requires immense project management skills, so some idea on what do you think? I mean, you've seen the world. And the last part is you are synonymous with quality, how to maintain standards and quality in a place like India, which is always a challenge, but you have done that. So if we were to create this like a really, really world class, I mean, not world class just for the title, but really something that India can be, the world can be proud of. How does one manage quality in a project like this, in a long 6-year project?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really grateful to you. Thank you very much for posing this question. First of all, should we do it? I think it's definitely needs to be done. And I think this is an opportunity and people should take it up. How it should be done, lots of good ideas are there. We can choose those ideas, we can modify them, we can improve on them, we can take it up, but I think they are very well and beautifully thought of, and why not we do it? Number two, whether we can possibly make something more than that also. The answer is yes. For example, we have done in the master plan of Mumbai, which is already part of the development plan, a 300-acre garden right from NCPA up to Kafpare. The entire lagoon is there with a lagoon coming in for the fishermen over there, just like you have in Dubai, an opportunity which can be done even at Nariman Point, along with the eastern coastal thing. So we can add that to the South Mumbai city side development. Whether we can possibly do it, let me tell you a story of 6 years ago. I approached Mr. Devendra Fadnavis with 5 ideas. One, Cross-Harbour Bridge, the metro 300 kilometers, the West Island Coastal Road, the Navi Mumbai Airport, and of course the Pinjal River project. So 4 out of those 5 projects are now in execution, and the total cost of those projects is 3 lakh crores. And we have funding for all those projects. While since independence till now, 60 years, we only had 30,000 crores spent in Mumbai region in 60 years in Mumbai region. And now we are spending 3 lakh crores. Then can we do that scale in government, private sector, or what? You have a person called Mr. Nitin Gadkari. He started with 4 kilometers of national highway per day. He now does only 35. I'm told now that has reached 37 last week of national highway construction per day. And I'll repeat it third time. 37 kilometers of national highway by government agencies. And he says there is no dearth of money. We can do even better. So it's not that we cannot get the money, and we can definitely do that type of activity, and there is no problem. As far as water recycling that we really need to do too, I set up the first sewage recycling plant of 4 million liters 30 years ago in Powai, and then later on in Thane. The whole city of Mumbai does not treat 8 million liters of water while we have been doing it for 30 years. There's no reason why the city cannot do recycling of water, and we reuse this water. So our requirement of the city of Mumbai will come down by 30% if you recycle the water, and you will not be putting shit into the sea. So whether we have the project management skills on the whole thing, we don't actually have execution capacity of that at this present time. But it's not that we cannot do it. So when you made the statue in Ahmedabad, we didn't have the skill sets or even the material to do so.
Yeah.
We make the statue for 3,600 crores.
Yeah.
So I don't see any problem relating to this when the financial viability of the scheme is quite easy to work on it. On the quality skills, we have done it. I don't know whether you have seen the Sayadri guest house of the government. And if you've seen the Reserve Bank of India building, which has been constructed. And yet at the same time, government makes building, which after 20 years requires to be rebuilt, reconstructed, and it's corroding. But you can make good buildings and bad building. So if you decide that you have proper leadership and proper economics put in, and people like Chintan and others can guide how this funding and financing can come. Incidentally, the funding for the purposes of metro and others is at 1.1% interest rate for 50 years with a sabbatical for 15 years on the capital which amount is to be paid. So money is not a constraint, project is not a constraint, leadership is available. We have the skills in this country. We have shown it that it is possible to do. What you actually need is somebody to bell the cat and say, I will do it. And you need a person who has the innate capacity, like our Prime Minister or Mr. Nitin Gadkari, or a couple of people like that in the country. If any one of them take this project, I promise you in the next 5 years, it can be done. So I don't see a problem. But just to give you an idea, Pradeep, there is a possibility of developing land right from Panvel to Karjar, which is being connected by the Trans-Harbour bridge, which is going to add twice the land available in the city of Mumbai, vacant and available today for the purposes of development, 20 minutes across the bridge after crossing it. So you cross the bridge and 20 minutes across the bridge, you have twice the land of the whole of Mumbai. So it all requires a vision and idea to do it. We are extending the suburban line from the Central Railway, which is from VT to Panvel up to Karjar, up to Karjar, where the work has already started. So this entire land which I'm talking about will become accessible by suburban rail in the next 5 to 7 years, depending on how fast this whole thing is done. And of course, you have the Navi Mumbai airport. So yes, the answer is beautiful designs that have been shown. It definitely can be done, but you need proper leadership who will say, I'll take it. And if they have the innate capacity. So money is not a constraint. Problem is only that we have to get it. Today, there is so much money available in the world, it's not funny. And they, in fact, are looking for projects like the ones which have been presented today. And I promise you, it won't take more than 3 months to get enough money for the project, provided the feasibility of the project is well designed, approved, and they trust the person to execute the project. When MSRTC was created 17, 18 years ago, Bombay-Pune Road, the 1,600 crores of rupees, we asked the budget from the finance minister of Maharashtra. And he said, from 1,600 crores, how much can you put? So he said, I can put 10 crores. Actually, he put in only 5 crores over a period of 4 years. And we bought the money in bonds. We raised bonds on the security of lands between Mumbai and Pune. And those lands were subscribed by the private sector. And we got more money in MSRTC than government got in MSEB, which actually went to the market at the same time. So again, no problem at all, only leadership skills into getting all these things to be done.
Thank you, Hiranandani, I mean, I think it was very, very, encouraging to hear from you that it can be done. We may not have all the skills. It's a question of leadership. It really boils down to leadership, really. And the vision is there, and money, like you said, will come. There are people globally who wait for a project like this. Some of the experts who wait for a project like this. So, if I think we should really put our collective hats together. I would really now go to Chintan, because you mentioned
Before I
about
just forgot,
the
I must
money. So,
congratulate both the
30.
presenters. It is fantastic. So, absolutely heartiest congratulations. Wonderful job that is done. A lot of painstaking
Yes,
work has been done.
that
So, really,
that was
very,
really
very
good.
good.
I mean, this
Very
is
good.
what
Must appreciate.
Niranjanji. I mean, this is what I felt. The sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah, so I think it's
I
wonderful
think your
that they've
internet
taken
is
this way to
breaking
do
up
it,
in
and
between. I
it
don't
would
know, but
definitely is an idea concept which can work very beautifully. I mean, we can always add on and subtract and improve and change a lot of things with different ideas coming from different people. But I think conceptually, it's both of them have been very beautiful concepts that have worked. And I'm glad to see such things. I think the more we put these ideas in the public domain, and congratulations to Construction World to actually do it. I hope they will front end this article right on the front page of their magazine in order to do it and see to it that somehow or the other people learn about it. And you have wonderful persons, other people on the panel, including Mr. Banthia and Chintan and Sarfraz and Ashish. It's really good. Thank you, Pradeep.
yeah, thank you, Mr. Hiranandani. Very, very encouraging. Now I would really go right to Chintan, because the basic question, "Maal kahan se aayega?" How it's a great vision. How do we do it? And I think Niranjan ji say that it is possible to raise it, but some of the specific ideas, maybe Chintan, because if you talk about it, how do you monetize 90, this huge piece of land, 90-year kind of a lease, and what are some of the best practices for monetization of this? Who could be the likely investors? Whether banks, private equity, wealth funds, REITs. How do we? What do you think could be our vehicles to raise this? And finally, the financial risk that a project like this could have. So what we need to be ready about, Hong Kong Harbor, Canary Wharf, all that. I'm sure everybody sees the finished product, but what went behind it, what mistakes were made that we should not avoid making. That is something. If you have any thoughts, and also finally, there is also volatility on the land prices, right? So how do you manage that volatility index? So altogether, if you can just spend a few minutes next to talk about it.
Sure. No, thank you very much. It's I think I think the presentations, I agree with Mr. Hiranandani. I think the vision that is there, the ambitiousness that is there, I think definitely bodes really well for the kind of project that is getting developed. The project definitely will have a lot of demand, and if you see how Singapore was developed, or how Hong Kong Harbor was developed, how Canary Wharf was developed, how Battery Park in New York was developed. So all of these were idle pieces of land which have been converted into a vision, which then reached a level that, as what you rightly said, Pradeep, today people are seeing the finished products and they are awed with the kind of developments that have happened. I think India has the ability to do, and India has a wherewithal to do it. Now, it's a matter of vision and leadership, right? So, can we raise capital for something like this? I agree with Mr. Hiranandani. I think there is no dearth of capital, and there are so many buckets of capital, right from banks to development agencies, to multilaterals, to large pension sovereign funds, to getting into creative financial instruments like zero coupon bonds, which a lot of infrastructure projects have had taken up, municipal bonds. So from that standpoint, see, I think the last part of your question, Pratibha, is really the important part that will determine how capital will be raised. Is what is the risk involved with this? If I am willing to put that capital upfront for this project? Will this project see the light of the day? Will there be issues associated with some of the projects that India has faced? And I can tell you, the conversations when we are having with these large global players is, each state and center has its own relationship, and will a project like this get approvals and green lighting from everyone? Once the project start, will there be environmental issues that will crop up at a later stage and not an upfront kind of approval on that? Will there be changes tomorrow? If you have a certain state government in Maharashtra, if it changes, will the project approvals change again? What happened to something like a sea-link, right? A project that was supposed to be done within a finite time period got extended. Can something like this happen to this project? So the risks and how the risks are kind of captured really well is what will determine what kind of funding can be made available and which are the players that can come in. And that is why the whole execution and the presentation of the vision and the people behind this will really determine what sort of funding will be made available, is how I would put it. In terms of kind of the impact that it will have a massive impact on Mumbai. It will have a massive impact on Mumbai. And if you look at what a small city like Ahmedabad, where I hail from, if I look at what the Sabarmati riverfront development has been done, right? To me, that city, that riverfront was really dead. Today, it's a very lively setup, where you had the Chinese premier come in and seaplanes flying through that. I think India can do it. It's just a matter of conviction that can get it done. If you can break this piece into smaller bite-sized pieces, have multiple people take up projects as opposed to one large developer wanting to do everything, experts doing commercial, experts doing hotels, experts doing entertainment, give them the right support, give them bite-sized projects, let them develop, let there be a common infrastructure developer, but each of the sub-asset classes be developed by right experts. I think this is very possible, Pradeep. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I mean, there are people, financial experts who could, come in. You can help Chintan. I mean, we know in KPMG we have expertise. There are others we can get involved. Financing part, it's a matter of process in a way.
Absolutely.
So vision is there. Leadership needs to be there. I would like to move to see Jayant Banthia sahab, who was Chief Secretary of Government of Maharashtra. Because anytime a project which involves multiple agencies, people raise their hand and say, "Ye hoga hi nahi," because it's so hard to coordinate. There is internal, sometimes turf war. There is all kinds of parochial kind of thinking sometimes. So how do you? And also there are industries like RCF, BPCL that Ashish talked about. That they need to become. And their old plans have to be given up. So how do you bring it under single project? And from an execution point of view, UK has this IPA authority, Infrastructure and Projects Authority, which executes projects worth some huge, like $500 billion, £500 billion worth of projects. They can simultaneously do 200 projects implementation. Is there a need to set up something like this, in here to execute these projects? So over to you, Mr. Banthia.
Yeah, thanks, Pradeep ji. My co-panelists, let me join them in congratulating the presenters with a basic idea to begin with from Surfaraz, where the involvement of the people was there, following the Rani Yadav committee to Admiral Rao, retired, to getting into it, and then more details from Ashish, a wonderful presentation, etc. I would just only add a caveat, not only for this, but for other new areas, new cities which are coming up, that what we find in urban planning is a lack of provision for cultural spaces. We are providing open spaces. We are providing for this. I mean, if you look at the city of Mumbai and the counter city of Navi Mumbai, one striking thing which you will find is Mumbai has got sort of more cultural space in terms of museums here, etc., etc. Navi Mumbai will become Mumbai of the 1960s, 50s, something like that in the next 10 years, etc. And we are struggling to have any museums, any of the cultural spaces out there, etc. So I think it's very important. In most of the city development plans, I find that there is provision for entertainment, leisure, etc. But something to preserve art, culture, etc. is grossly missing. So that is only a suggestion. Coming to your three questions broadly, first of all, about even if the Special Planning Authority of Mumbai Port Trust, whose proposal is with the government of Maharashtra as per the presentation, is permitted to go ahead with it, etc. There is what Ashish clearly pointed out, the neighborhood of the RCF and the petroleum companies and power companies and so on and so forth, which is an imminent danger. Right now, it is a danger. It is a danger of a greater propensity once this is developed here, etc. So there's no doubt about it. Now, what I really fail to understand in this development plan, while you can always create new plans, etc., etc., why is the provision of saying that something which is sort of outdated, I won't use the word obsolete, but outdated is also used, saying that these places had their relevance once upon a time, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 100 years ago. But historically, whatever has been there, unless it is something of a great cultural legacy, there's no reason to continue with that, etc. Let us take the case, I'll just give an illustration. I mean, Mumbai grew because of the cotton textile mill in the late 18th, 19th century, etc., etc. But for the Datta Samant strike, this textile industry would have paralyzed the city in any case. And most of these textile mills were relocated outside. There's no doubt about it. And for good reasons, etc. Let us take the case of the market, the vegetable market and the Crawford market. When Navi Mumbai was being set up, the Turbe APMC was designed for that precisely, the steel yards, etc. So there is a very good case that something like what Ashish pointed out, which is no longer relevant, in addition to being a public sort of a danger, basically, needs to be relocated. And therefore, if this plan is to go ahead, it is extremely important that there are certain things which need to be done parallelly. Otherwise, there will be this stumbling blocks which was pointed out, etc. So the answer to that is yes, it requires relocation. Since these plants belong to the PSUs and the government of India and to some private people, they should be given options here, etc. about their relocation choices. Whatever incentives is required to be given needs to be given, etc., etc. That is the first set of things. We have done it, but we are lagging behind. Cantonments in this country are another glaring example. They were set up by the British. They are no longer relevant in that sense, actually. But nobody has the courage to say that a defense establishment should go out of the city, etc., because it's no longer, it is, there are better alternatives for those things, etc. So the answer to that question is yes, they require relocation, number one. Number two, regarding the coordination issues which are there. So my quick suggestion would be, well, whenever projects of any size, we have this MTH link, we have the Navi Mumbai airport, I have been a part of all this, we have the DMIC coming. I mean, all these projects, they are envisaged for 10 years, etc. They are running into longer periods and longer periods. Why? And the whole issue is the clearances which are required, the legal clearances, the administrative clearances, the hurdles in the court, they are a big ban for these projects. So it has been suggested by several of the people in the industry, the bureaucracy, even other people in Niti Aayog or the previous planning commission, you should, before launching this project, have clearances, which is a plug-in issue, should be there. If those plug-in is not there and somebody has to run for environmental clearance and somebody has to run for this, etc., that is not the best way. So there has to be a very clear role of the government, particularly the state government and the government of India, in ensuring that these hurdles, clearances, which are mandatory, which should not be bypassed. I'm not suggesting they should be bypassed. They need to be met, and met honestly, but well in advance parallelly. And that is where the role of the central government and the state government would be there. And that is where the role of the bureaucracy to a large extent could be there. To your last part about project of national importance, national significance, etc. Well, we have been a part of this, etc. The Prime Minister himself takes a review of all projects of more than 1,000 crores. 1,000 crores is far too small, but that is what is being done. That is current definition. Otherwise, the definitions of project of national importance, national significance is most of them with irrigation departments or some of these mentioned industrial area corridors I mentioned here, etc. So this will be a path-breaking exercise and will put the project of national importance in a totally different orbit, which we have not seen in this country. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. And it is required. Whether it should be put under the Prime Minister's office or any similar office, etc. Because even in
Thank you,
sorry,
Mr.
there's some
Banthia.
noise. Yeah, in the UK, it is not only under the Cabinet Office, but under the Treasury. So there are two
Mr.
offices combined over there. Okay, so I'll continue and finish.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I can.
So
Just
I
thinking,
see.
because we have to end in a few minutes. I was
Yeah,
wondering
sure.
we can
So
take
I'll
a
just wind up
question
in the
from the audience
next 30
also.
seconds.
No?
Next 30 seconds, Pradeep, I'll just. So what I
Sure,
see
sure.
for execution and for all these things, etc., continuity is extremely important. That unfortunately government agencies will not be in a position to bring. So for execution purposes, for people holding accountable and responsible and with experience which is there, I think the role of the private sector is very critical and should be brought in. For getting clearances pre-project, during the project, maintenance, etc., the role of the governments would be there. There's no doubt about it. So it is a clearly public-private entrepreneurship which is going to be launched if a project of this scale is to lead. But we need to change the whole concept of project of national importance and what current it is, etc.
Thank you, Mr. Banthia. I don't know if there's a question from the audience. Otherwise, I would like to. If there's a question, I'm happy to pass it on to our panelist.
Actually, Mr. Das, we are running short on time, so I would
You're
suggest
running
that we
short of time,
continue
so
with
let me
questions.
just summarize then. I will. So again, I want to really congratulate Ashish and Sarfraz and Mr. Rao, etc. Coming together for something, a project of national importance and in many ways international importance, because India as a country is some is an economy that people are saying in future will drive the GDP in the world. So I think we need to think big, think at a scale where we can create billions and billions of like if UK can execute $500 billion projects, IP authority, we can also do this. So I think I congratulate the team here to have that vision, have that idea, and get the debate going. We will get people behind it. What I have heard from Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani is that it is possible to do it. He has seen it happen. Money is possible. Execution also can be done. We have some expertise, and there's a global expertise which is waiting to help. And we can really set world standards, and according to him and Chintan, money is something looks big, but it's definitely possible. What is really needed is the leadership. Who will bell the cat? Who will take the mantle? And one of the things that Mr. Rao and Mr. Bhatia also said that we need. This is a national level project, so you need some like PMO, Mr. Hiranand saying either with Mr. Gadkari or Prime Minister to take this project up in next 5 years. It can become a reality. So, and there are so many. Some of this presentation, I don't know, Ashish, would you be putting up in a public domain
Yes,
for
we'll put it
people
on
to debate and look?
Construction
Because
World's
some of
website
the
now.
slides were.
We put it
Okay,
up on
wonderful.
Construction
So
World
that
website.
people can go there and see, because
Yes.
it's really well thought out. In many ways, and bringing all this, for creating 9 lakh kind of jobs. double the GDP. You can imagine. I mean, if Mumbai GDP can be doubled, Mumbai GDP itself, I don't know what percentage of national GDP is Mumbai, but it would be huge. And of course, like you said, it's a holistic. It's not just get richer kind of a project. It's something which is with affordable housing, many things that it's going to benefit everyone. So again, I look forward to this becoming a reality. Thank you very much. Thanks for
Thank
putting
you,
that.
Mr.
Thank you
Udas,
all.
Thanks, Construction
and
Maharashtra.
thank you
Thanks,
for the
Mr.
panel
It should be a front page article in Construction Maharashtra, as Mr. Niranjan said. That what we
yes,
planning to do.
yes.
Yeah. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you so much. I
Thanks,
think
everyone.
our event has been making headlines today, and we've been on the front of all the platforms that we've been hosted on today. So, thank you once again, Mr. Udas, and thank you all the panelists for joining me in for this session. We would now move on to the next session. We have our panelists
Thank you, sir.
already with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we now move on to our third session.